Hello there. I didn't see you come in. Don't worry, I didn't move again. I just felt like getting cozy today. So, welcome to my reading nook. I should use it more often. So, get yourself a hot chocolate. No coffee allowed on Christmas. Snuggle up and let's get into this year's Nerdicopia Christmas special. Greetings, citizens of Nerdicopia. I'm your princess, Judith. Merry Christmas to everyone who celebrates. Happy holidays to those who celebrate something else around this time. And season's greetings to those who don't. As you may have noticed, I like Christmas. So ever since this channel began, I've been doing a Christmas special every year. The thing is, this year I haven't had as much time to prepare for it. I work in administrative support, but this is the first year that I myself really felt the end of the year rush. I'm not complaining. I have my part to play and I'll be darned if I don't play it to the best of my abilities. But that does mean that I haven't had the time and energy to research or script anything. So I decided to do something I've been considering for a while. And I think this is a good time to give it a try. Also because it means that the video will, by definition, be mostly unscripted. Like this bit and the bit at the end are scripted, but the meat of the video will be improvised. Because today I'll be doing a solo actual play. What does that mean? Well, you may have heard of a game called Dungeons and Dragons. D&D is what's called a tabletop role-playing game. A game on a tabletop where you play a role. Now, it turns out you can also play these games solo, which is admittedly very different from playing in a group, obviously, but for me it has some advantages that I'm also not going into today. So today I'll be playing a solo role-playing one-shot, and I'm gonna take you along for the ride. I'll be using a system called Hands-Free RPG. Link where links go. To me, Hands-Free RPG is like the holy grail of role-playing systems, because you can play it with absolutely nothing, with no one, and no preparation. You don't have to, but you can. I have genuinely played it at night, in bed, to burn up those last grams of brain energy that keep you awake. But like, it's not enough to read, and if you watch something, you'll be up all night. So for my needs, Hands-Free RPG is perfect. Fair warning, there is some AI art, and it's genuinely the worst part of the whole thing. That talking head is so creepy. But aside from that, it's a really good system. And it's perfect for a cozy time like this. I am making one change though, because rules as written, Hands-Free RPG is of course hands-free, without any props or tools like dice. In this game, a check to see if you succeed in doing anything or fail is made with a word, which is great, but I can't be bothered right now to think of that many words and count strokes the whole time. It also wouldn't be very good content. So instead, I'll be using a coin. Obviously, you can just do heads or tails for yes or no, but I want a little more flexibility. So here's a little hack that I've been using to use coins as just about any dice, including a D100. And I'm hesitant to present this as something that I developed, even though I did, because it feels too simple. It doesn't seem possible to me that no one else in history has ever come up with this. But I haven't seen it anywhere else, so if you have, let me know down below. Basically, a coin has two sides, of course, but it also has a rotation. Which means, if you can find some kind of indicator or pointer on both sides, in this case it's a little bit subtle, but there is Portugal written on it. twice actually. So I'll be using the house between the T and the U to be my indicator. So if you have an indicator, you can use that as a sort of wheel of fortune. So imagine equal sections around the coin, kind of like a clock face or something like that. Except you don't need exactly 12 sections for this. I usually use 10 sections, but it depends entirely on what dice you want to simulate. Like when I want a d20, I look at which out of 10 sections the coin points to, and if it lands on heads, I add 10. And you can adapt that to just about any dice you want. For D100, I have 10 sections with 5 subsections each, numbered 0 through 4. And I do that number times 10, plus the number from the section out of 10, plus 50 if it's heads. I know that sounds complicated, but if you rewind a bit and take your time, I'm sure you can figure it out. The nice part about this is that you don't have to get it exactly right, as long as you are genuinely trying to just read it fairly. All that to say, I'll be using a coin for my checks. And this one is chocolate. It felt appropriate for Christmas. But what am I actually playing? Obviously, it has to be Christmas themed, but like, who am I playing? What's gonna happen? I thought it'd be fun to let fate decide. Also because I know my brain, and if I know in advance who I'll play, I will just start preparing things already. And that just misses the point of the whole video. So I have a list of 8 characters that I'd like to take on little Christmas adventure, and the coin will tell me which one it will be. And then I will play until I finish my hot chocolate, or I reach a satisfying conclusion. We'll see. So, who's on my list? Number 1 is Candy. She's a Christmas elf. She was actually in the Christmas story that I did some years ago at this point. And she is in my Christmas canon. She is Santa's cook. Number 2 is Holly Claus, or Holly Klaus. She is Santa's daughter in my Christmas canon. Number 3 is Alethea of Imladris. She is an elf scholar from Rivendell. Number 4 is Mila, or Lucia Tulia Minor. And she is a teenage vampire from ancient Rome. Number 5 is Tiffany Woodworth, a witch in a pseudo-medieval world. Number 6 is Laura Nova. She is the daughter of a clone trooper, and she's on the run with her mother after the fall of the Galactic Republic. This is intended as like Star Wars, but honestly, it can be generic sci-fi. Number 7 is Emily Rosewood. She is the daughter and heir to a duke, and she's also one of the main characters of the queer Jane Austen light novel that I've been working on and should probably get back to soon. And number 8 is Princess Bianca. She is my Princess OC, because of course I have a Princess OC, this cannot be a surprise. I had to have at least one princess in here. Also, I reserve the right to veto if I don't feel like playing that character. The point isn't for this to be fully random anyway. The point is to not be too prepared. So, without further ado, let's get on with it before this script gets as long as my normal scripts are before I've even played anything. So, it's pointing, this is what I got, it's pointing in the 4th quadrant, so 4, but it is tails, so I don't add 4, which means it's 4. Character number 4. Character number 4 is Mila, the vampire from ancient Rome. This is interesting because Mila is very old, so I don't know yet where I'm gonna put her for this. How do I find out where I'm gonna put her? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna simulate. I'm gonna stop saying I'm gonna simulate it because I'm just using a coin. Basically, I'm gonna roll a d20, and that is gonna give me a century for when this may take place. And then I'm gonna have to hope that I can somewhat remember where she was at that point. Let's try it. So, I got heads, and it's pointing in the 6th out of 10 section. So I got a 6 plus 10, 16. So the 17th century, basically. This is a problem when you play a solo RPG or any kind of RPG that relies on established canon, be it history or some kind of pre-written history, because you have to either check it or make it up and roll with it. This is a notebook that I use for a game called A 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, and that's where Mila comes from. She's my vampire character in the game. So I looked it up, and during this time, during the 16th and specifically the 17th century, when we're looking, Mila lived in London with the family of a witch that she knew literally when she was a kid in ancient Rome, before she became a vampire. So her witch friend called Kore, because she was of Greek descent and she was a kid, so it felt like a good name. She's a witch and she became ancient, and so she also grew old, and she had a family in London. And so in the 16th and 17th centuries, Mila lived with them. So, also an interesting thing that I seem to remember is that in the 1600s, this is like the time of the Civil War, and this is also like the time that Cromwell takes over and bans Christmas. Am I gonna use that? No, because I can't remember that much of it. Sometimes you have to make choices. So that's the character we have, and where and when she is. Now let's see for a starting scene. Let's start actually playing, shall we? So, how we determine, or one way we can determine a starting scene in hands-free RPG is using, I think they call it code names or code words. Basically, you have like an acronym, and each letter stands for an aspect of the scene that we're trying to fill in. And we fill it in by having a word of the same length. Actually, you don't have to pick a word of exactly the same length. And you also don't have to start at the beginning of that word. But I tend to do that because it's easier. And then you go through the word one letter at a time. And for each aspect, you come up with a word starting with the letter starting with the letter in the corresponding position in the word that you picked. That's confusing? I know. So I need a 6-letter word because the acronym I'm using for the beginning is the word begins. So I need a 6-letter word. Got it. I got a perfect word, but it needs a bit of explanation because a silly idea that I had was to, down the road, make Mila part of the story of Dracula. And I decided that that the story of Dracula is a retelling told by Bram Stoker. But like in my canon, he wrote it from something that actually happened, changing like the names. And so he changed his own name to Abraham Van Helsing. He's Van Helsing, because of course he is. To me, it's really obvious that Van Helsing is a self-insert of Bram Stoker, but anyway. And Mila is Lucy Westenra. The family that she lives with is the family, what did I name them? Hawkins, I think? The Hawkins family. They have a house in Whitby, which is where the story of Dracula, well, the beginning is in Transylvania, but like the beginning in Britain is in Whitby. So I'm gonna use all that to say that I'm gonna use the word Whitby. So, first letter is the B for the beginning, the inciting incident. And we need a word with a W. I'm gonna go with white, for White Christmas. It snowed. Then the E for environment. I mean, they're in Whitby, but for the very first scene, like it can be in a church or somewhere specific. So environment with an H. I can't think of anything better than just house. So let's say they're at home and they see outside it snowed. A G for goal. What is their goal for today? I'm gonna say it's probably like morning and they woke up and they see it snowed. So what's their plan for today? So their goal with an I. First thing I think of is incense. Can I use that? I'm gonna say that they probably figure they need to get incense. That's it. They want to do a play, like a Christmas performance where they reenact the Christmas story, and they need incense for that, or something to pretend to be incense. Yeah, something that can look like the Christmas, like the gift from one of the Magi. We're at the I from the acronym, which stands for impediment. And we need an impediment that starts with a T. I mean, the first thing I think of is a tree, but I don't see how a tree is an impediment for finding something to be incense. This is so convoluted, but maybe they find like a pretty snuff box or something that they figure is perfect, but it's locked behind a lock in like a display case adorned with a tree for some reason. Or maybe the Christmas tree is just in the way. There's no Christmas trees yet, so that's not it. So just, it's adorned with, it's locked up in a display case adorned with a tree. It's a little convoluted, but it works. N is for need, so what do they need? Probably the key, but we need a need with a B. I'm thinking of bread, but like this is the richer, slightly higher up class, so like it's not that weird to have to say that bread can also mean like pastries and such. So I'm gonna go with pastry and say that they found that the box that they need or that they want to use is locked up in the display case, and they need the key, and they know that the key belongs to the father. Let's give him a name. Lucas. Lord Lucas, Viscount of Whitby. It works. The display case belongs to him, and in order to get the key, they figure he loves the specific French pastries. What if we ask the cook to make them, or make some, or ask someone to buy some, and then we can bribe him into giving us the key and lending the box. Okay, that works. And then finally, state. The S is for state, which means like atmosphere. And what psychological state might they be in? I need a psychological state or something like that with a Y. First thing I think of is yellow, but that doesn't really make sense. So a quick Google tells me that the color yellow is linked with the emotional states of happiness and joy. So I'm going to use that. And that makes sense because it is Christmas time. So they're happy. So who is they? To keep it easy, I'm gonna say that Mila is with one daughter and one son. Are they twins? I'm gonna say the odds are not high. So what I'm about to do is something called a common sense oracle, which means you pick, I'm gonna use on a d20. So you pick out of 20 1 to 20, what are the odds on a scale of 20 that the answer is yes? What are the odds that they are twins? And I'm gonna say it's not 50-50, it's slightly less. 3 or 4. It probably doesn't matter that much, but I'm gonna go with 3. So if I get a 3 or lower, they are twins. If they are not, then they are not twins. And that is a 3. So they are twins. Okay, so what are their names? I'm gonna go with Alice, and you know what? Let's go with William, because that is a very likely name as well. So William and Alice. Is Alice a possible name? Probably. I'm gonna assume it is. I try, when I do this, I try not to look up too much. Because it does, as fun as it is to look stuff up, it does take away from, like, it does take time and attention away from the story. So I try not to do that too much. But it does mean sometimes you have to be okay with things not being entirely historically accurate. So, Alice and William, I said. Okay. So they want to do a like a Christmas tableau. And for that they need let's say they have already cast. Let's see if they already cast everyone. I'm gonna say 3 again. And that is heads, so that's definitely a no. They haven't cast everyone yet. But it's not so bad that they have to cast, that they've only cast like 1 person. So let's say they cast Mila as the angel, who will like give the message to Mary, and the siblings, the Hawkins siblings, Alice and William. I'm just repeating them so I remember them. So Alice and William as the couple, Mary and Joseph. They'll probably use a doll for the baby Jesus. Who does that leave? Some shepherds, maybe some sheep. Let's say they use stuffed animals for the animals. And the Magi. I'm gonna say that they already cast the shepherds, and they'll need, let's do a D3, which means just sections of 3 and heads or tails doesn't matter. The question is, how many have they already cast? How many of the Magi have they cast? That's pointing down. That is the second piece, second section. So they've already cast 2 Magi. They need 1 more. It is entirely possible that Dracula is like not a bad guy yet, and that he is invited to this Christmas, or that he is a guest there. Is it likely? I don't know. It's not very likely. Out of 20, I will say the odds are like 7. So if I get a 7 or lower, Dracula is there, and if he's there, he will be cast as one of the Magi. So that's heads. So that's definitely more than 10. So definitely no. Dracula is not there. But that does leave the question, who is? I'm going to use a word generating technique from Hands-Free RPG that I don't quite remember what they call, but I call it the Wordle technique. Because basically you pick a word. I'm gonna use Dracula because it's at hand. And then you pick one letter from that word to be in the right spot, and another letter to be in a different spot. So to keep it easy, I'm gonna take the first 2. The first letter can be the one that stays in place. The second letter, I'm gonna say moves around or somewhere else, is not in the second spot. I don't always do it that way, but it is the most obvious, and sometimes it works because like that gives me DR as letters to like work with, and DR, I know that as, or for me that's a instant abbreviation for doctor. So I'm just gonna say that the doctor could be a half brother. So is it a half brother or a bastard brother? What are the odds out of 20? You know what? I'm just gonna flip the coin. It's about 50-50. Yeah. That's heads, so in this case that means no. He's not related, he's just a family friend. So he's not a Hawkins or something. I'm gonna say his name doesn't matter that much. Yet. So the doctor is cast as one of the Magi. There's one more Magi? What's the singular of Magi? Anyway, there's one more. Who is it? Let's use the word doctor again to generate a new word. But not the first 2 letters this time. I'm gonna use... Oh yeah, that works. I'm gonna use... Yeah, that works perfectly. I'm gonna use the letters C and T. And I'm gonna keep T in its place, where it is. And I'm gonna move the C. I'm gonna move it to the beginning of the word. And that allows me to make the word captain. Yeah, someone in the army. And a captain can be related to them very easily. So is he? Is a captain like a younger brother of Lucas, of Lord Lucas? That is a 2, and I forgot to put a no, that I'm not sure if that's a 2 or a 1, but either way that's really low. So I'm gonna say yes. Let's say it's 1, because that allows me to use another technique that says if it's a 1, it's yes and. So yes and what? Did he just return from the Americas? And again, I didn't specify the odds, but again, I didn't finish my point. Because what you can do is see what you rolled in this case, is that a 1 or a 2? You can just read the odds and think, is it more or less likely? And in this case, it's definitely a lot more likely than 1 out of 20, or 2 out of 20 even. So it doesn't really matter. So he's a captain. He just returned from the Americas. Did he bring anything? Potatoes, probably. I don't want it to be that relevant, so I'm not gonna worry about it. So one of the magi is the doctor, who is just a family friend, and the other that they have cast is the younger brother of Lord Lucas, and he is a captain who just returned from a journey to the Americas. Okay. Now, they still need to cast one more magi, or magus, mage. They need to cast one more, and they also need to go to the kitchen to see, hey, is there bread so we can get that little box? So they go to the kitchen, and do I have to roll to see if anyone is there? I'm not gonna. There's like the cook is definitely there. Obviously, I'm imagining Mrs. Patmore from Downton Abbey. So Mrs. Patmore is right there, cooking, and she's like, "Oh, my lady's master, is everything okay? Can I help you?" Who is gonna reply? I'm gonna do 1, Mila replies, 2, Alice replies, 3, William replies. So that is... That's on the... I'm gonna say that's on the edge of 1 and 2. So I'm gonna say, because it's funny, that Mila and Alice answer at the same time. And Mila is then gonna let Alice explain it. And she explains that they want the box and they are trying to convince the father to lend them the key. And they need, let's say, croissants to convince him. And do they have croissants? Do they have croissants? What are the odds? Let's just toss. That's heads, so not very likely. That is a 13. I'm gonna say no, but. But what? Are they expecting a new delivery? I'm gonna say that they don't have them right now, but she just put a new batch in the oven, and they will be done in how long would that be? Bakers, don't shoot me, but I'm gonna say half an hour. Is that correct for croissants? I have no idea. So half an hour. So they will then agree that they will use that time to try and find their third magi. Would they try to convince the father? Is that likely? I'm just gonna toss. Again, heads. So no. they won't even try to convince the father to join them. I'm gonna do the wordle thing on the word father, and the first thing I think of is the word friar, which I just realized. I thought it could be someone from the clergy, but I can also interpret that as someone as like the culinary frying, right? But I don't think it's very likely to have someone like that. Cooking in this context, we're not gonna find a man doing that. But maybe, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna say that one of the scullery maids, who I'm gonna call Daisy, obviously, she's like, hey, I can do it if you want. Does that convince? Are they gonna let her? I'm gonna say 7 out of 20. And that is again heads. So that's definitely more than 10, so it's gonna be a no. So they are not gonna, they're gonna politely decline Daisy's offer. Are they gonna go out to ask a priest, or is a priest there? Is there a clergy person there? Heads again. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. I'm gonna assume it's fair. There is no clergy person in the house. So they decide to go out. And yeah, they're just gonna go out and see the preacher, is that the word? The parson, something like that. Where do they find the priest? Is it likely that they run into the priest on the way to the church? Not impossible. I'm just gonna say 50-50 again. So they run into the priest on the way to the church. So they're like, hey, priest, Father Theodore, how are you? Do you have plans tonight? Does he have plans tonight? I'm gonna say that he can come and be Magi, but he will have to leave very quickly because it's also Christmas Eve and he has a mass to prepare and do. So they go back to the house and it's a Christmas story, things can go easy. Let's say they're right in time for the croissants to come out of the oven. Can they take one? Is anyone gonna make it a problem? Probably. They can probably just take one. You know what? I should probably interpret that as no, they can't take one. They have to like rest for a bit. I'm gonna override that because I think it's funnier. And I'm gonna say that they can, but the one taking it, I'm gonna say William. William picks it up and burns his fingers. I shouldn't laugh, but I am. So yeah, William burns his fingers. He's probably fine. And they take the croissant to Lord Lucas, who's working on admin probably. And yeah, they give him a croissant. They say, hey, Mrs. Patmore just finished making these. They're fresh out of the oven. We thought you'd like one. Also, can we borrow that pretty little snuff box right there for the play? It is like rare and expensive and all that. So he may want to like keep it behind lock and key. But also these are his kids. So those two I'm gonna say cancel out. And would bring it to 50-50. And the croissant brings it to 12. So he's like, yeah, borrow it. Now, I'm gonna first check, does anything happen to the box? Will the box be fine? I think it's quite likely that it's fine. I'm gonna say 14. Okay, so that's heads. Oh dear. That is a 16. So they probably drop it during the play. I think Lord Lucas is gonna be like, oh my god. He's not gonna be too mad because they are his kids. And it is Christmas. But they did break something. So I'm just gonna check. Is it fixable? I mean, it probably is, but is it very fixable? Is it something they can do like right now? They can fix it, like in-house. Maybe not right now, but maybe he'll be working on that through the night. He'll probably just do that, but it's not too hard to fix. So he's not mad at all. But he might be thinking twice about lending one of his boxes to his kids. But does that mean that the priest is late for his mass? I'm gonna say probably. So that's 5. So he's definitely late. But that is where I'm gonna end this, because I have been filming for 1 hour and 33 minutes. So time for the YouTube thing. With that, it's time to wrap up. Please let me know down below if you liked this solo actual play, and if you want to see more like this. Did you like the cozy setting, or should I just get back to the normal set next time? That's it. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays!